optional.
Oh, and that's, we did have to, yes, so, yes, but need clarity over community engagement plus timeline.
Yeah.
For the spring break
That wasn't
schedule.
my favorite of Lansing was, but I was the only one that said Lansing, so I think that's out.
What, I have,
And I was the one that didn't say Ray Associates, so I think we're.
okay, so that was just a
Yeah.
4. That's what I was thinking. Because that was the one that came in late yesterday.
Correct.
Okay, so for McPherson, I have a yes in terms of top half, but need clarity on size of districts and newer references. Do I have, what was that one, that's this one here, in the bound
Yeah,
one.
that's the organized one.
That's the organized one. So
So
that is
like that.
5, okay, so they are definitely. So let's talk about, we'll come back to Rain Associates.
I think we all rejected.
Yes, that's
No.
true. Yeah, BWP, we all rejected, okay. So,
And then on the Northwest leadership, we had 2 people that were saying they liked it and 3 that were saying, right?
I think there's a valid question about going to that. Does it make sense if you have something you're excited about, and are you adding a third in just to have a third in, or is it, let's not spend the time on it? I mean, that's, we're getting close to that, but I think we're
Right.
sorting those out. But
and that was going to be my next question.
right,
Well, I think it's probably worth interviewing them and getting to the what happened here, because if we can get a quality product out of them like Evans does, then it's a but for the time, or we just didn't have time to put the proposal together, or something that I think that's worth knowing.
Maybe that's a question that Amy could clarify versus if, because I really did not. I mean, I do agree that Edmonds taints it, but
Interesting.
we don't know how much of that was their board or their,
Right, and that, I mean, that would be good to get that information, was it the search firm or the board directed, or?
and they did have a lot of time to prepare for their search, because they were noticed in November, December,
Yeah,
so.
it's a retirement.
but the McPherson's really the only one that I think everyone agrees does some of that. Is saying that on this timeline, they can do the community
We're not
engagement.
selecting the final one, it's just
Correct.
to get some more.
Yeah.
Right, but to the extent that if the reason why that Edmonds has this great engagement process is not because of their search firm, it's because of them, we don't have that built-in capacity to do it, what one of these other search firms does. It's like, you know, because it's going back between what does the search firm do and what does the board do and the rest of the people in the district. The PTA, there's a whole host, you know, NSDA, there's a lot of people that are interested in this process. We want to be able to coordinate that. If they're like ready, willing, and able to coordinate and do it, then that's I think finding out why it is reasonable, but I also think I think it's pretty clear where the enthusiasm is on those, and so it's just a question of, do we want to spend the time with a candidate that's at least at the paper cut stage at the cut line, or below the cut line for some.
So this might help us, because officially right now, we only have one that we've all said we definitely want to interview, and that's McPherson,
But this
because,
one you have 4.
right, that one, so is that enough, do you think that's enough to put them on the list? 'Cause-
Well, I think, yeah, there's 4
Okay.
people.
okay, so then we do have 2, so
I
that
was the
does
one
help.
that didn't like it. But I mean, you have 4 people that were very strong. You guys all said strongly that you wanted to see this one, so.
And I think now that we're developing our must-haves, your questions about multiple methodologies and things like that would be something we'll bring as part of our interview questions, which will help quite a bit. So then, all right, so I guess we are.
And I think we at least need to have 2. We do need to
Yes,
have these
exactly.
people face to face and be able to ask them the questions, at least.
Right. Having just one is not the best
They
process.
could put together a beautiful proposal, but if we get them here, it might not be the same thing.
Well, and that is, I think, a point, is a lot of these proposals are in their templates, that firm, and then what really matters is who's the consultant on the ground that you have. It's like a law firm, you go to the big law firm, but who's your lawyer? And they may,
Well, maybe something that could be a factor in what board members think about whether or not to interview Northwest leadership. So here's how a week from today is shaping out logistically. So we have 1:30 to 5:30 booked as a board, and the idea being that we wouldn't have definitely not more than 3 search firms to interview. So I was thinking initially we'd give everyone about 50 minutes. So potentially start at, just say for lack, just for an example, this was something to talk about too, but say start at 1:30, you interview Rain Associates until 2:20. That gives us a 10-minute break to kind of exchange ideas and, kind of talk before we talk to the next folks, take down some notes, what we liked, what we didn't like, and connect. And then at 2:30, we'd start with McPherson, do a 50-minute exchange. Again, connect as a board, take down some notes. 3:30, there would be some else. So in terms of the incremental time as a board to interview another party, it's not very much. Because then that gets us to 4:30, and then we have an hour to go through who we want to select. And then the next day, we flip the switch and let them know and go on from there. So, if that, for me personally, like I said, Northwest was on the bottom of my list. But I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing to be tainted by what I see in Edmonds, but it's enough of a good thing for me. I'm curious to ask them more. So I don't know if right now I would choose them, but I would like to have that face-to-face interaction to ask them. That's where I'm landing. But
I have 50 minutes a week to talk to a candidate. I think that's what we're asking, right? Is that we have another 30-minute conversation.
And I heard earlier in the process talking about having them do their pitch, as it were, for like 20-ish minutes. And I don't know does it make sense to roll them through and have other community members talk with and understand them, and can we get some written feedback with that, or is it just us and our interactions with that? And so you can roll that through if you say, we have staff and they're 10-ish represented groups.
Right.
We have community members, and there are various different groups that represent community members. So we could have our conversation with them, and then those members could also, right, you could stagger that. We could have it for 30 minutes, and then they could go 20 minutes to talk with staff and 20 minutes to talk with the community. And I just don't know how much, because it is our decision, we have to make a decision. So I don't know if that just complicates or if that's useful in this piece of that.
I'm worried that 20 minutes wouldn't be enough to let all the groups talk, but if a week is enough time, perhaps we could ask folks to email us ideas of questions they'd like us to ask. And that way, if we need more time to ask questions.
Right, and I don't, when I think of doing the pitch, I heard 20 minutes, I can't remember where, and I thought that sounded too short. 50 minutes for them to talk at us is too long. And so, is it a 20-minute,
Pitch and then
then there's board Q&A, and then there's maybe citizen, audience Q&A. I don't know.
I don't have any issues with the audience Q&A. I'm just trying to, we have to respond by the next day. So how would we get the
Right,
feedback?
right. We can do the quick feedback forms,
We just have that
1
moment.
0 to 5 kind of things, and if people want to sit through that, and they can do that and write out a few comments. I can't, well, I've done things like that before. I can't imagine them having any different views than what we have. No, I can't imagine that. But especially if it's violently different or just significantly different, it might be worth to know that. But I'm not sure this is because all these firms do this work, and there's the process. And as long as we, go through the process, we just have to do it. So I don't want to overly complicate it at all.
I kind of like your idea in the sense of what we could take we can ask questions and then we could say, is there any other questions anyone would have? It doesn't have to be like everybody
and just be clear about how much time we have.
yeah, and I mean,
I'm thinking as a
if a community member has a question they want to ask or they have familiarity with a search firm or, a different angle, I don't know what the harm is to have somebody ask questions. Not harm, but I see that as positive.
Right, sorry to talk over. One of the things I know that a lot of searches I've been in higher ed, do a lot of them, and they'll have like 10 questions. and it's the same questions for each one, so we could solicit from all of our known community partners and anyone else, if you have a question you'd like to ask the search firm, and then we could just ask those as a part of the process, and then each of the firms could get that, and they wouldn't necessarily see the other firms doing the pitch, so they'd have to answer that. In some sense on the fly, I don't think it's a gotcha question, but to the extent that we're interested in that, and excuse me, and for them to see, because I assume some of this has to be a local public meeting, I assume we have community that's going to want to watch and observe that, and so I think that could be valuable. Because you want to make it sort of as similar as possible, so that you have kind of a basis.
With apples to apples, okay?
And then we could also ask our associations if they have any questions that they want to submit.
Wide net, right?
Well,
Because it's the middle of the school day, so it's probably challenging for some.
I think it would be almost more
So-
balanced to ask for solicitation of questions beforehand, you know, and even for folks home with their kids or whatever, working, yeah.
And then we come up with a list.
And then and again, it's the same,
Just
because that's in
maybe
the,
the most that we, you know, where we see that there's several people asking the same question.
Right, and then
Yeah,
that
exactly.
question, and then I've seen that, you know, so they could give a 20-minute pitch, and then we could have some set of maybe 5 questions that everyone gets, and then it could be open Q&A.
I like that idea. Okay, so 3, and
So
putting
we're
that
not
down.
gonna ask any questions outside those ones that
Well,
No.
It's
No,
just
I'm just
different.
saying.
No, yeah, but what I say is you give them 20-ish minutes to present, then we'd have 5 same questions, and we'll tell them we'll have 5 questions that are going to be driven by our community groups who are, you know, interested and want to be involved in the search, and then the board would have the opportunity to ask any question
clarifying.
and discussion.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, if we invite the community, having just a feedback form, you know, very quick feedback form with written comments,
That's a good
and,
way to do it.
you know, and then we can see that, because you can pop that stuff really
We
quickly.
could just-
Yeah, and I just think it's a way to show that we really want to see it, and if there's something they're saying that we're not seeing, or those things that we would have to deliberate and choose, but it'd be nice to give that opportunity.
Then let's make sure that we find multiple ways to ask people those questions, you know,
Oh, yeah.
give us your
I
question.
know, we'll have to get on that. But, we'll do that as soon as we can, you know, and
Is that the next
again,
agenda item?
well, so, but, you know, at least it is kind of a precursor to the more full-fledged, you know, community engagement that we're going to have. So, so let me rope back, do we want to invite Northwest leadership? We could take a show of hands if that's the simplest way to resolve it, or if you want to talk about it some more. Do you want to do a show of hands? I'm in favor. That's okay. So does 2 halves make it? We cannot, I'm okay, I'm not wedded to it, I'm
I
just
think for
curious.
15 minutes, there's possibility, you know, we're gonna pick one firm.
Right.
If we interview 2, we're gonna pick one of them. If we interview 3, we're gonna pick one of them. If that, the only harm is if that third one that we don't interview is the one we would pick. So I think for 50 minutes, it's a great investment. Let's invite them.
And I,
And
It
how's
does-
everyone else?
it doesn't matter.
Right, what is it,
I'm
the
just
5,
not-
yeah, fist to 5, what's the neutral?
2.5.
Yeah. 2 and, yeah.
I know, right?
When I say no, it doesn't mean I'm opposed to
Yeah.
the decision that.
Yeah, I'm indifferent.
If you're, all right, well then
I
let's,
just-
if we have the time, let's invite them. So I'm going to, so let me go back. So our top half, we have some specific clarifying questions that we have for the first 2, and let's think of what it is for Northwest leadership. So for Rain Associates, we said we want clarity over community engagement with the timeline, because it hits spring break for us. With McPherson, we need clarity on the size of districts they've worked with and have looked for some newer references. For Northwest leadership, is there anything particular to them we'd want to make sure to ask?
Why?
How can we do it?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Why
the
is this
proposal
what they
doesn't
gave
look
us?
like what must be a really good search.
Yeah, between
Okay.
proposal and Edmonds, okay.
And I guess one of the questions that I think we might have to have is how much our search is consultant-driven or firm-driven? And so maybe Edmonds has the best consultant that Northwest has. And they said they have 9 consultants or whatever, and then, it'll be all, 3 of them are full-time, 3 have flat searches now. They'll be all hands on deck. You're our top priority. Well, then everyone else becomes your not top priority, we become your top priority.
So I'm gonna guess one of our must-haves will be the individual in charge of our search is the person at the interview.
That's,
Yes.
Yes. Right?
Yes, in many ways you're hiring that person,
Right.
not the template.
Just firm driven versus, I got a question list. Versus consultant driven, okay.
And that makes it more in the future.
Yeah, because that's
Because the
true.
person may not be as good for both. That's happened before.
And I think, and what I'll do, I mean, I wrote as fast as I could, I might have not done it, but before, I would say before Friday, I'm giving myself to do, I'm gonna try to type up what everyone said about the 3 finalists, so that not only should we ask for questions from community members, we should ask them from ourselves, and kind of have our standard list. So if there's anything board members see, we want to make sure that we get on the list so we don't forget it. Let's review kind of our points, and then we'll get back. So put it on my to-do list. Question, submission process.
Oh, I want to know,
My turn-off question with Northwest Leadership,
Okay.
why they felt the need to state that the board's in charge and they qualified community engagement with us being in charge of it. To me, that's, I don't know, that just statement bothered me.
This is really tricky that they haven't made this go ahead, so now I have to do math on our timeline. So we have 35 minutes left for this piece of the board retreat. And we go, absolutely.
I want myself.
Oh, we're not done yet.
I know, that's why I'm saying that. Say it fast.
So,
Few more steps.
submission process.
that's what Amy says.
It's what the research
I
says.
remind you guys, every
Research
time I
might
make my jokes and people are on the audience, you guys aren't getting them. Amy said humor.
Right,
You're supposed to.
right.
So
Humor's
David
important.
starts and you're-
So let's talk about, let's see if we are ready. If we're ready to talk about, more specifically about the scope of the search. I think this would help, obviously a lot of questions from community members, a lot of questions from staff. If we're ready to start narrowing scope, even if we're not final, I think it would be helpful to everyone to have a conversation. So, the first question is, and I think we started it already, so I'm going to take this one off. It's a simpler discussion perhaps, but the role of internal versus external candidates. That idea of just the question in general, how we want to approach it as a board. Would anyone like to, again, we talked about, going with a search firm. We are going with a search firm. I know personally, I think this is too much work for us to take on anyways. I think we need a search firm. But in terms of how we'd like to discuss the board's opinion about internal versus external, would anyone like to talk about it? Do you think we have any outstanding questions? It sounded, to summarize what I thought I heard before, it sounded like we were going to use a search firm. Would we, I've inferred that we're going to be definitely looking at external candidates by using a search firm. Would we like to go on record saying we wouldn't be excluding internal candidates? Or something like that,
Look
or
at the best
like,
candidate.
right, so we're looking for the best candidate, period. Same process for both? Okay. I mean, I think it was a relevant question to ask, if we're gonna spend $30,000 to hire, whether it be interim or permanent, someone within, is that a good use of district resources? Relevant question.
I think it is.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we know we have the best candidate.
Same process.
And that's one of the best things about the proposals, once they started coming in, seeing how much they do and how much they do for us, but also how they do for the community and the whole process. I just think it's wonderful. It's one of the best investments. Yeah, I don't think there's any question that it's a value investment. It's a necessary investment. You have to go through a permanent search, so let's do that. now.
Right.
And then we know, and I think one of them, all of them basically said, if, just to reiterate, if the permanent search isn't going to come to an agreement, if the board's not satisfied at that point, we have a stable of, interims in the ready. And there's not an additional cost essentially for that, other than expenses. And I think that was, my blood pressure just went, right.
Yeah, so I want to reiterate that, because this was something that, it was good news to me as well, as, and this would, I think, a clarifying question we want to ask them all, because of our timeline. I wish I could pull up an example, but you meet with the board, you start to define criteria with the community, and then you post for the position. So several of them suggested you post for the position if this time of year we're not coming up with the pool of applicants we like. We flip the switch and make an interim search happen, and so we can take that same work we've already done and take it to the fall, where there might be a better pool. So I know that was kind of like it was a pretty interesting moment when I read that as well. I don't know if, I don't want that, again, individual, I mean, it does have some risk. I mean, I was it looked like about early May is when you would have to decide about whether or not you like the pool of applicants. If you don't have that 8 to 12 really robust applicants, early May, it looked like for most of the schedules, that's kind of when you would start to get that feeling. And so the question might be, okay, so if we're early May, we have July 1st as a deadline, it's 2 months enough to get that interim in place. I don't know if I don't want to get us down this road too far, because this is just what's been in my head. We haven't discussed this at all.
Right, my sense from the proposals was, once you've engaged the firm, they've tickled their Rolodex. And so they're looking at anyone who's available in any way, shape, or form. And that would include people who could be as an interim for whatever, and there's some people that are at that point in their career that they do interims, whether it's 1 week to 3 years,
Right.
depending upon the needs and the transition. So that could be, those candidates could be available for interviews tomorrow, is the sense that I have with the consultants who are broad and connected. And so, yeah, if you get to that kind of here's the pool date, you're not excited at the pool, you could start doing your interim candidate interviews that time. But I think we should ask, but my sense was it's a matter of weeks, like 2-ish, before, once you say we need an interim, and those search firms would be able to provide you with a list, and they would know our criteria, they'd know more about the district, so it'd be a lot easier to say, here's someone that I think is a fit well, if it's a matchmaker, not a service.
So I think that one of these proposals spelled it out, basically said, go in there with the fact that we've got great experience delivering an excellent pool of candidates, in your timeline. And don't worry about the interim versus the long term. Just find the best candidate for your position. And if that doesn't work out, then we'll go to plan B. To me, that made great sense. So I think finding the best candidate now, we'll only know by what the search returns, but I'm optimistic that we'll get lots of great candidates.
So start with optimism.
Well, I'm so glad to hear us all saying this. Because I talked to a board member in another district. Yeah, big load off my shoulders. I talked to a board member in another district, and I asked them what process they went through, and they brought up a really good point that might help to kind of relieve it. It relieved some of my concerns and fears. They had said, when we're talking about that there's not going to be a pool, and they said, well, what isn't a good fit in potentially Edmonds or Everett? Those top 3 candidates, one of them might be a great fit for us. And so when someone's rejected from another district, it doesn't mean that they weren't a great candidate. It just means for whatever reason, they might not have fit the criteria of that particular district, that particular administration, community board. And so then I hearken back to I wasn't here during the previous search, but it was between, I think, Larry and another gentleman who's now the superintendent at Bellevue, correct? And so there was 2 good candidates, and one is, we got one and the other superintendent is in Bellevue now. So I think it shows that even if the two school districts that are doing the search, their top candidates might still be wonderful fits for us if they're willing to go through another search. So, and I love what you said, how there's an opportunity for an intern, because I think that was the biggest stress for most of us and what I was hearing in the community. What are you gonna, you know, they're skilled at this. We can put this in their hands and have confidence that they know what they're doing and can lead us through this process. And if it comes to May and we don't have someone in place, then they're able to, like Ken said, pull the trigger, get an intern, because we do need a superintendent. I'm just hopeful that we can find the right person before that can take us through 2017. So through all the, yes, through all the changes. Yeah. That's what I meant, a permanent, yeah. I shouldn't.
Looking for Buzz
Take us
Lightyear,
until
Superintendent
2000.
Lightyear. 2017 and beyond.
That's where I think a permanent would be good for us.
I guess that's my only concern. And I'll just agree with everything. That was just a huge relief of, okay, if we're not finding community members say that we're picking from the bananas at this point. You know, if we can find, okay, we can do an interim. And I think the other worry I have is we've got a lot of changes coming. We don't have capacity for more in the next year and a half, and bringing a new person in with great ideas and enthusiasm and energy, and then we have to say, okay, but just hold off on that and wait for a couple of years, and then we'll have the ability to think those things. So that's just my worry, that will that be the same person that can manage the already huge amount of change in the projects we have in place, and then switch to, okay, now we're looking at what's next. I'm hopeful, be optimistic that we'll find someone that has both those characteristics. But I was just very relieved that, okay, if that person isn't there, we have a plan B that we can switch to very quickly.
Well, that's a relevant point, though, and something to think about as we're go to the stage where we're starting to look at applicants, in terms of skill set and demeanor and ability. I think of Eric over in North Creek, right? I mean, very dynamic individual for sure, but he definitely jumped right into the system and is implementing the open at school very well. But he struck a balance, I think. Right. It's a good example of someone striking a balance. He knows exactly what his job is to do, but dang, did he have fun with those kids getting that mascot? Mm-hmm. So it's I think, yeah, but it's a very relevant question to start thinking about in terms of qualifications. So, okay, I thought there was going to be much longer discussion. That's great. We're on track for Silver Star. So the next up is I want to talk about communications from the board. So I think I've been talking with Leanna.
Let's just wrap up, because I don't need 5:30 tomorrow. So what we're doing at this point is we're going to interview next Tuesday. A week from today, 3 search firms.
Yes.
With the goal of them doing a search, both internal and external candidates. If they can get a permanent one, and we're all excited, and it's great, that person will be in place by July 1st. If not, if we get to a pull the cord point, then we will go with an interim.
And we will have
that's what's been decided
right?
So far. Does that match everybody's view of what we just talked about?
Do we need to wait until our business meeting, because the superintendent search is on that, or do we can take action, we're in a special meeting, we can take action on that, and so do we want to call that question?
Yeah, I was just making sure, because in case anybody didn't come back for the 7 o'clock show.
Understood.
That they had the right information.
Yeah, and I think so, but I think we should take that, my guess is we should take that as an action, motion, second, and.
So you know what, let me go back through my notes. I'm gonna submit the whole package as I have it, and let's do a thumbs up, thumbs down, make sure I didn't get anything incorrect. I think it's a very good point to sum it up. So we have identified 3 search firms that we want to interview. Ray and Associates, we keep calling them McPherson. Okay, good idea.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you for the suggestion. So Ray and Associates, McPherson and Jacobson, and Northwest Leadership Associates. We have, each of them, we have identified a clarifying question we'd like them specifically to talk about, but we've also identified a list of must-haves. So the must-have list is a full range of community engagement options, and not for them to happen over spring break. Multiple methods, again, for gathering the community input with that engagement. The idea of the search firm taking the time and the extra step to do first year goal setting with the superintendent and the board to lay groundwork for the first year. The idea that we would like the search firm to meet individually with each board member to gather input as well as collectively. Because those are 2 different conversations, but we want it to happen in a way that doesn't sacrifice the timeline. And we have to, it is a requirement that the consultant be at the interview. The consultant would be running the lead for us. So we have ideas in terms of process.
Did media?
Oh, advertising and media. I have that down as a question. So let's put that in terms of
For me,
questions.
that's a must-have.
So media in terms of updating what's going on or attracting candidates?
I think both, but in particular with the community, being able to keep the community, I loved how Edmonds did it. Now, I'm not a part of their community, so I don't, but, I've been able to keep track of their process, and it's made me confident in their process, and I'm not even there, so.
Okay.
So if
Okay, we can
I'm
definitely-
gaining confidence in it, I think it would be a positive. And I think I've seen other community members sharing those links around saying, their community, anyway.
Well, no, but
They're
that's,
being informed.
right, no, but that's, I think, a good clarifying question in terms of what services they're offering us for the money. And we do have other questions. How much of that work is driven by the firm versus the consultant? We talked about having a questions in the submission process, and that's going to take a little work on my part with Leanna to see what's feasible to do within a week. We probably would want to try to get them by this. I'm throwing this out. I have to talk to Leanna. I don't want to. She's the expert, but yeah, I would think we'd want them at least by Saturday, Sunday, so we have time to collate and make the list. So questions from the public?
Oh, yes.
From bargaining units, staff, PTAs, whoever is curious.
And
wants.
any community member.
Yeah, for sure, as well as us. So I'm going to type up kind of our notes on the 3 finalists, my very scratchy notes, but just to get folks thinking about, are there any questions we want to make sure as board members we want on the list as well. We definitely do want to have a robust discussion about this idea. We go out looking for a permanent, but we have a date to go to Plan B if, that gives us enough time to test the applicant pool, but still gives us enough time to get a competent interim if we have to go down that route. And then in terms of the interview itself, we were talking about a 20-minute, kind of a 20-minute time frame where they would offer us their pitch. That leaves 30 minutes, and depending on the questions we end up with, probably start with community questions, community stakeholder questions. I'd rather call them, right? Because I want to ask bargaining units and stuff as well. And then we would wrap up with questions from ourselves. And so it would be about a 50-minute time frame, the entire process with each group, and then we have an hour at the end to discuss which search firm we want to go with.
And then just to clarify, so I think does that clarify?
Yeah,
Okay.
No, but
we were all
yes,
on the
no,
same page.
no,
Good,
thank
good.
you, thank
But,
you.
and then just the additional clarification, so then that hour at the end of that, we would have to do it public, and then we would have to take our vote at the end of that to choose. And in terms of, we'll have to choose. If we had difference of opinion, I think we all just have to agree right now, let's go through that process, and if we have a difference of opinion.
And if we're very off, we could do weighted voting. That's what I was thinking.
We'll figure out a way
yeah,
that we have to
exactly.
choose at that point in time.
We have to,
Even
we
if
have to
it's-
leave them,
Right,
because
even if it's a split choice,
Right.
and then we'll be fine with that, yeah.
and Jeff has committed that he can spend the afternoon with us,
Okay.
since he is a professional. So, so we could because he's also gonna be putting together the contract. So it's relevant to have him there as well.
So I feel like right now we're doing a better job with just the 5 of us, and so I'm not sure that, do we really need to have,
Well, and we can talk about that. I had asked him to block his schedule.
maybe we could do that same thing again, and if we have questions, I just feel like right now I don't know how you guys feel, I feel like we're having a very productive conversation with us driving the conversation right now. And since it is about us hiring the superintendent, and so that's just my feedback.
My thought is that we hadn't done group interviews before. And we can definitely vote on this about whether or not he's there for the whole time. We haven't as a group done group interviews before, and because we had this quick ramp up, I asked, basically to help us interview, not to ask the questions itself. So help us guide them. I'm willing to. Yeah, no, I'm willing to open it up.
And I'm open up to anyone.
I'd be curious to see how the consultant handles the room with a bunch of questions, because that's part of the process, is how do you get valuable input from a variety of sources. So I think that's also a second thing. So like if the consultant is fielding questions,
Right.
that's going to be good to see.
So what do you think about having Jeff as a resource?
Yeah, I feel like through this process of interviewing and getting answers, that's going to, I would imagine we're going to get one firm that maybe in everyone's individual mind, maybe the same thing will kind of rise to the top of the road. So it's just, so I guess I don't feel like we need additional support
Okay.
to,
You've done education.
Yeah, I'm indifferent, I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other.
So maybe I'll ask him to be on call.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay, and then in terms of, to follow up with the summary, make sure we have it all, we're all on the same page. We're, internal and external applicants will be welcome to apply. Sorry, what's the other one? And it will go through the same process. And then we talked about our idea about permanent versus interim, so that was just a second time I'm writing that down. Did I, all right, so clarification.
And then I guess the question is, should we take action on that here, or should we take action on that at 7 p.m.?
We are allowed to take action now. We do have superintendent search process on our agenda.
Sure. So I'm indifferent.
Right, I'm indifferent as well.
And the only reason why I can say maybe wait until then, because that is the formal business meeting and we have public comment. This was noted, some people couldn't come today.
Yeah, sure.
So I think we have a pretty good idea from this, and I think that's generally that here's our consensus at this point in time. But if something happens, let's leave that open for people, and they knew that that's their time to.
For sure.
So I think even some of the people who are observing right now may say, it's a horrible idea. We love your
Yeah,
idea.
you're right.
So let's plan to have that motion made and voted on,
Okay.
because we do have to, I think we should take action.
Yeah, we need to take action.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay, sounds
But
good.
I agree, let's let public comments. And then maybe we can get that typed up with Cindy. Yeah.
She can read my notes. I'm sorry. These are my notes. Well, we'll see, we're ahead of schedule, knock on wood. I have a second to throw a word document together, my laptop with me, so. So let's talk about, so I'm thinking that as a board, we need to do more communications about the process and get into now that we have greater level of detail now. So, Leanna and I had talked about, I'm gonna put together an update, kind of similar to what we did to the different groups, bargaining units and PTA and CPAC and everything. A detailed summary of our meeting today. Happy to have you guys review it before it goes out if you like, or we just agreed on the summary if you want to just have it go out. So I'm kind of more process question in terms of, do you want to see it before we go out? Do you have any inclinations in terms of, Leanna thinks we now have enough content to have a clearly defined, she put it somewhere on the website, but I couldn't find it, superintendent search, but now you
our
know,
website. That's not the place to talk about it, but we need to make it very clear where we can find it,
Exactly.
because I can't find it on there.
okay. So, and she was thinking, this is a ton of content, we're gonna have a separate page, it's gonna go up.
Which would be great.
So, yeah, so I was gonna put a superintendent search process website on the, and it's, I think that's fabulous.
And we can just basically take the summary I'm making, and use that as the content. You know, so
Yep.
that way it's the same thing going to everyone has the same information.
And let's, if we could, if you would send it around, because we might get some things we didn't think about tonight during
Sure.
comments. Something we didn't think about is being,
Now, my only question is, she's getting on a plane tomorrow, do you have time to review while you're away? Because you know, it's probably time sensitive.
I'm sure I will find it.
Want me to text you when to
Yes.
look in your email? I'll
Yes.
text you when to look in your email.
I'll
Okay.
call you and read it.
I'm sure the
Okay.
Daily Show won't mind if I, like, could you just stop for a second while I read this?
I'm sure. Oh, yeah. So jealous. Okay. All right, so board to review, then.
you want to do the Daily Show? You are?
Well, I'm gonna watch. You're gonna go watch the Google there too.
We have tickets, we have tickets. Well, we have tickets.
So, okay, so we'll send it to the board to review, then we'll send it to all the groups who've already started contacting, as well as beefed up web presence.
And again, I think it's one of those things that we can just ask Leanna about putting it out in multi
Yeah.
ways, whether,
And
community
promote it.
neighbors, Bothell, community, I mean, wherever we can put this so that people can get access to it.
And I think a weekly update
Yes,
is a really good idea too.
very good idea.
Since we're gonna have it standing on every,
Yeah,
well, I know, next week we'll have more news.
right, exactly.
Cool. Any other ideas about communication?
I think maybe for me, letting people know if you have comments, you can come to our meetings and make your public comments. And not everybody knows that. So this is a time where if they wanted to,
I was assuming that, thank you. I was just
Assuming that if we have a web page for it, as many web page has, there's just a comment. If you have any comment about the search, pop it in here and hit send, and then all of a sudden it's in.
I don't want to state the obvious, but I want to just make sure that we have it in Spanish as well.
No, it's very
Let's-
good.
Let's state all the obvious we want, so start collecting comments. Process, and ensure it leaves the gate in Spanish.
is there a way to put that in like at the schools where there are a higher, it was a great point, number of Spanish speaking children and families? Can we ask those principals to, do we not do that at this level?
Well, we
Just distribute it.
yeah, ask Leanna.
I think that's
Because I
great,
think
because I
they
would
are-
love during this process to have more diverse input from our,
When we're doing the community input, that's a really good idea to keep in mind, so
Yeah.
to make sure we're getting that feedback.
For sure. Just take notes. Okay. Great, any other thoughts around communication?
More of that.
Right, I think that's true. And then we'll have to get right on with soliciting questions for the search firms.
I wonder if we want that to be, thinking back, harkening back, I wonder if we want that to be a question for our search forums of what work have you done with diverse communities and how do you?
That might be a must have.
And we saw in McPherson, they had that specifically
especially a
written.
district that's growing and will continue to grow in its diversity.
And make sure that they are,
And how do they engage the community input from the different,
Right.
Got it. Good stuff. You guys ready for the next?
yeah, what's next?
Okay, so, and this is a question I have for Jeff actually. So we